Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, and you know what that means? It is Hear Your Truth Tuesday. I'm Leslie Pogue, your host. So, welcome to today. Today is actually International Day Against Homophobia, Transphobia, and Biphobia. And it got me thinking about phobia as a whole, how we approach the world, how fearful we are of different types of human rights and just different things that are going on in the world. Because there's a lot going on. I mean, you would think that we were back in the 60s. I mean, we have abortion rights, we have the LGBTQ community, we have elections coming up. There's so much unrest, there's heightened violence and racial cruelty. And there's just so much going on right now that we do have to take a moment to pause, especially again, those of us, which is I come at it from a mental illness position. So those of us who manage a mental illness, all the stimuli and all the things that are going on in the world can be a lot to take, and so I kind of want to focus today's conversation more around the idea of phobia, not phobia against any one thing or person like spiders or human rights or anything like that. I just want to take the focus and make it a lot bigger because I don't want to take the focus off of the international this day to recognize the LGBTQIA2S plus community because again, human rights across the board is huge, and I do want to pay respect to this day for them. But at the same time, I also want to, broaden the conversation as it relates to mental health, mental illness, and mental wellness. And when we talk about phobia, it can be any number of things, but a lot of things that come up for that, whether it is a phobia or a fear of something small to something big, like a human rights issue, there's still anxiety around all of that. And so anxiety is something that, shows up differently. It shows up physically, it shows up mentally. We lose our focus, we sweat. I always forget one thing whenever I log on for my day for YouTube Tuesdays. Always something I forgot. Did I plug in the computer? Did I turn down my phone? Anyway, so I want us to think about focus on that today. The big thing about fear shows up fear turns into a phobia when when it starts to impact your life. And that's the difference. Fear it's a normal reaction, actually. We have fight or flight wired in us, and it helps keep us safe, actually. So fear is a normal, natural reaction to imposed or implied danger, right? But a phobia is where that fear becomes so great and so overpowering that it stops us from moving in the world. It impacts our life in such a way that it keeps us from exploring new things. It keeps us from anything, actually. It's just a fear. So it turns into something so big that it halts our life and it impacts it in a non-healthy way, right? So that's the best way to put that. So how do we combat that? Well, I'll tell you in my own life, I'm an introvert, and with everything that's going on in the world and then COVID and all that, again, I speak very honestly about transparency. Going in and out of the world currently is challenging. Actually, I have to like gear myself up and prepare myself to go out into the world for something as simple as checking the mail and going to the grocery store. So you want to make sure that the first thing you do, and this isn't even in the three things I'm going to mention, but what you want to make sure you're doing is be aware of how you're feeling about what's going on in the world, how you're feeling about the fear, how you're feeling about the anxiety. Be conscious of it and knowing how it's showing up in your body, whether it's you not wanting to get out of bed, whether it's you just making excuses not to go out into the world or go to parties or meet with friends. Recognize how it's showing up in the world, because that's the first step in designing the attack approach to you. there are lots of articles that have all these global things that tell you, and most of them actually tell you to exercise, to meditate, and all that. And while all that is truly helpful, each person reacts differently. You know, it sits in our own bodies very, very differently, depending upon who you are, depending upon your past experiences, depending upon the origin of the fear and the phobia. So you want to be cognizant of that, which does take me to my first recommendation on how to stop it or how to, address it and manage it. And that is to educate yourself and understand the origin, where it comes from, understand if it's a bias or if it's an unsurety about something global and international in the world, like a human rights. Then educate yourself on the origins of that situation, whether it be racial or gender or age or whatever it is, or even the legal system. If there's a law that you think is just so outdated, okay, educate yourself, and it makes you nervous about that. Educate yourself and understand where it came from, what the flaws are, what you can do about it. Educate yourself on the organizations that are working to for it and against it. Actually, you want to understand both sides of the argument of all of those things. So think about that. And the same is true for our feelings, for our emotional phobias and fears. Educate yourself on the signs, the symptoms, the treatments. Understand all of that. And that will actually minimize it, because just by feeling like you're taking action, that enables you to feel like you're doing something about it. And as human beings, that is just an automatic mental trigger that you are, improving, that you're working toward it. Because when we feel like we can do something about a thing, that's why firing someone on Friday, worst thing ever, because you're sitting there and you have to wait until Monday before you can do anything about this situation. You can't file for unemployment. You can't do anything until Monday. And so you're just sitting and stewing. Friday's the worst day to get fired, but I digress. Think about how you're tackling things, and that will help you. The second thing is to own your own bias. You can be totally for fluidity and all these open things to do and exercising and positive psychology, and you can be for all of that. But internally, because of your own generation, because of your own spiritual belief, because of your own feelings on it, or how you've just always lived your life, it might not be your personal choice. And that's okay. It's how you react in the world that matters. So as long as you're not openly violent, as long as you're not, doing anything to harm other human beings, then how you internally feel about it is how you feel about it. But be true to that. Own it and own your own bias, your own confusion, your own even just values and morals. This is how you operate in the world, but you are very open to how everyone else chooses or is created to work and operate in the world. Absolutely. But own your own, be true to that, and allow yourself to forgiveness, or I shouldn't say forgiveness, because it's not like you're doing anything wrong. Allow yourself that latitude to be who you are and believe what you believe, without being apologetic or judging that it's wrong or you should be changing. Because as long as you are open to the fluidity and you are open to other people being able to live the life they want to live, then there's nothing wrong with how you choose to live your own personal life, right? And the last thing I would say is to talk about it. Let's have these conversations that are non-judgmental, that are in a safe space, to actually be allowed to share those views, share those differences, and share, how you feel, because that also helps in the education of how that lands on other people, how it is in the world. And, it also builds alliances to talk to other people and partner with and collaborate on how to move their agenda forward, how to educate a larger scale of people, and to just make sure that we're all kind of open to allowing everyone to move in the world the way they need to move in the world, provided, it's safe and not causing harm to other people, right? So think about those things on this day where we are focusing on so many human rights issues, and think about how you want to be treated, whatever side of those arguments you're on. Think about how you want to be treated, but at the same time, don't feel like because someone because someone feels differently than you do, they're wrong, they're racist, they're uneducated, they're none of that. It's just they view things differently than you do. And that's allowed, just like it's allowed that you view things the way you do. So I hope that was helpful today. I hope that broadens the conversation and the view of, fear versus phobia. Fear is natural and ordinary and regular, and we have fear. But when it becomes a phobia, that's when you want to take steps to take care of you. All right. Well, as always, I always have to remind you to go follow me on Facebook at LP Speak. Follow me on Instagram at LP Speak. Go to www.lpspeak.com to get the 10 practices to achieve the habit of happy, and always find out, what's coming up and what we have going on. We have a couple of webinars coming up. I have the burnout webinar that's available, self-paced, and then I have a burnout webinar coming, I want to say in June. I'll get that date out to you on the website, so definitely look out for that. And as always, until next time, go, be, do.